Please help me welcome Sam H. from Burlington.
Thank you, Dan. Before I get started, I was going to have a sponsee come down with me and introduce me that knows me a little bit better than Dan, so I can tell any lies. But he called me about 5:30 as I was driving down here and said, "Sorry I missed you. I can't make it today or tonight. I'm stuck in court." No, not on that side. He is a lawyer, and he had like 21 cases today or whatever. My nerves have settled down a little bit right now, but it is intimidating to come to a group that I've heard about ever since I first got sober. I have a friend today, his name is Bill Borshett, and he gave me a book when I was about 5 weeks sober, and it was 1,000 Years of Sobriety. So I read that book, and it was 20 old-timers who had over 50 years of sobriety, and you can guess who was in there. Tom I was in there. And I have been thinking about this home group for 9 years now. Haven't made it here. Always wanted to visit it, but not under these pretenses, I promise you. I promise you. Hey everybody, I'm Alcoholic Sam Huffstetler, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm grateful to be here and grateful to be sober. A couple of other things before I get started. There's a guy here tonight that I heard speak several years ago too, and I didn't really appreciate what the language of the heart was until in his story, all of a sudden it was a very emotional moment for me. I was touched, and I would even call it a spiritual experience, and I think that person knows who he is, and I just am truly, truly grateful for his friendship today and his leadership and guidance for me. A little bit of house cleaning coming up. I told you I was an alcoholic. This reminds me of something I was thinking about on the way down here, trying to think about what kind of joke or anything that I could tell to kind of break the ice. And I remember reading in the grapevine probably 4 or 5 years ago that a young sponsee came up to her sponsor and said, "What's the difference between an alcoholic and a real alcoholic?" She simply responded, "The difference between dead and real dead." If you want to find something else about a real alcoholic, you can find the answer in the big book. As a matter of fact, I haven't found any answers to life and life today that I can't find answers to in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I know that it's important, and the big book kind of instructs me. Well, I haven't got my house cleaning yet. I do have a sobriety date. How about that? It's July the 26th of 2008, and for that I will be forever grateful. And that is simply because I believe that the grace of God, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, people like you and those who came before you, I haven't found it necessary to take a drink since. Big Book says I'm supposed to tell you what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. I was just thinking it'd be real easy for me to just stand up here and say, well, for a time I thought it was wonderful until it turned horrific. Then I was given a gift, and today, as a friend of mine who's an old-timer from New York says, it just keeps getting better and better and better. One thing I need to mention, I love to hear this too, because I'm not going to try to take myself too seriously tonight. My home group is Rule 62 in Graham, North Carolina. I do have a second home group, which is a Big Book study in Belmont, North Carolina. And that came about as in doing service work as the district CPCPI coordinator, and a church called and said they felt the need for a meeting. That meeting's in its 8th year right now. It's a small group. It's an intimate group. We share, and we share very similar to the way that we share on Saturday mornings at Rule 62, and also prior to Rule 62. I go to a meeting each Saturday morning, 2 hours before our meeting at Rule 62, and meet with what we call our sponsor tree. We sit around for 2 hours. We talk about life, problems, and spiritual solutions. And sometimes we just sit there and chat about sports or whatever. That is a part of life. We laugh, and my sponsor started that group when I first got sober, and actually took me through the steps, and I didn't realize it as we talked about these things, problems about myself, about some complaints I had, about some character defects, etc., that you can find as we do in the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I had a great family growing up. I really was. I was brought up not really wanting anything, with a silver spoon in my mouth, but a loving family. I was brought up in the church. I was taught a lot of the things that you'll find in the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I just didn't want to listen to them. However, I did have at that time a faith in a loving God, and somewhere along the way, and I think you'll find out, I lost any contact that I had with him, turned my back on him, and really didn't think that there was one. The Big Book describes me as a bewildered one, someone who once had faith and lost it. Thank God I found my way back to it today. I'm one of those people who can remember his first drink, but not his first Coca-Cola. I can tell you I was 6 years old when I was sick at my grandmother's house, and she mixed me a bourbon and horehound candy to help my chest cold, and I can even tell you that it was Old Forester bourbon. Why I remember that, I have no clue. I have no clue. I really don't. And I've tried to think about that first Coke, and I still can't do it. Today, I was reading one of the things that I read each and every morning, and that was AA Thought for the Day. Comes over the internet to me, and the simple name was called Pickles. And I read through it, and I got a little chuckle about that. I experienced my first blackout when I was 16, headed down to Mount Olive, North Carolina. And if you know anything about Mount Olive, you will know that it's the pickle capital of the world. So this guy was pickled definitely there. The saying is, if you haven't heard it before, of course, once a cucumber becomes a pickle, it'll never be a cucumber again. That's simply my story, and I'm sticking to it. I drank my way, I was the oldest guy in my class, and I drank my way through a high school on weekends, having fun, just looking forward to the next weekend where I could do the same thing. I was able to buy beer before anybody else. And of course, I would buy the beer and share a small amount with them, and I would make sure that I had enough for me after we threw everything into the pot to buy the beer. I continued on. I had a very, very easy time in high school. As I think back, I only had one friend in high school. One friend. I did a lot of things in high school, and I've heard it said many, 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 many times that I never felt a part of anything. I could be alone in a crowd. I was just different. But everybody didn't see that in me. But this one guy and I grew close. We learned to drink together. We'd study together for exams in high school. We had fake IDs by the time we were 16. We'd go down to a beer joint in Graham, North Carolina, and study until we caught a good buzz and figured that was enough studying, and we'd go back home. As I said, things came very easily to me then. I pretty much had the choice of where I wanted to go for college, and one thing that would probably tell you or alarm you that you did have somewhat of a problem with alcohol would be that I was nominated and going to the finals of a very prestigious scholarship here in North Carolina. And I threw a big one that Saturday night, decided that that scholarship wasn't really that important, and I'll just apply to another school. That's what I did. First time that alcohol really had some effect. Other things happened. I drank my way through three universities, greater universities of North Carolina. Never had a degree until years later. Alcohol was just my friend, my solution, helped me fill in. The social lubricant was a little bit more than the social lubricant that the Big Book talks about. Along the way, I took my first geographical cure my senior year in college. That was from the University of North Carolina after I transferred my senior year twice to State and Carolina, and headed for California for that geographical cure they talk about here. And the only thing that I received when I got out to California was a note from my parents that said Godspeed. That was it. While I was out there, I was robbed. I ran into some people that were just like me, but not quite as honest as I was at that particular time. And after a couple of months, found my way back home with nothing in my possession. I had a family waiting for me, a father who had his own business and took me in and gave me a job. Perfect job for a budding alcoholic, traveling salesman. Seriously, that lasted for many, many years. Along the way, I met a beautiful woman who somehow, she won my heart and I took hers, and we got married. She was asked later in life why in the world she ever married me, and she simply said, I didn't know he was that way. We were blessed with one child, a daughter, who I missed growing up. She was the first one to call me an alcoholic. I think she was 10 years old. That was 30 years ago. And called me an alcoholic to my face. And I think I just said some ill words to her, went upstairs with my big full glass of scotch, which I'd always do when I came home. First thing to do is fill up a glass before you go up and unpack, say hello to your wife, kiss your wife, or whatever. So along the way, the traveling salesman aspect, things just grew and grew and grew. I would leave town on Tuesday mornings, come back on Friday mornings, work really hard for the first 2 days, and spend the next 2 days either at the bar the night and during the evening or drinking in my hotel room. I finally figured out the best thing to do, of course, was to order dinner out, and I check into the motel and buy a couple of days worth of food and just sit there. It's the isolation had started. I fell up the ladder in sales. I don't know how. I guess I saw people that were like me, and this was back in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, and it was just common to take people out, play golf. Of course, you go out to lunch. You'd have a drink or two. It was brown bagging at that particular time. I was stopped several times while driving under the influence. Back then, court systems were a little bit different. You could buy your way out of a lot of stuff back then, a lot of stuff. Simply put, my life just progressed as an alcoholic. I totaled a couple of cars, bought my way out of a couple of things, had several visits to the hospital, blamed it on traveling out of the country and catching a parasite or whatever, but bleeding internally several times for the last 5 or 6 years. I was an obstinate alcoholic. About 30 years ago, I realized I had a problem, and I talked to this friend that I mentioned from high school, and he said, yes, I'm an alcoholic also, but I'm a functioning alcoholic. This guy ended up being a nuclear physicist, and the last time I saw him, he was in the detox and behavioral medicine department of Alamance Regional Hospital. His eyes were blown out, they had hemorrhaged and everything else. I walked out of that hospital, down that hall, out of that behavioral medicine, and swore, I'll never be like that. I'll never be like that. I ended up just like that. Back then, also, after I realized that I'd had a problem and started having a problem, I built up a real big resentment. One night about 12:30 in the evening, I called Alcoholics Anonymous in Alamance County. At that particular time, they had alcoholics answering the phone. this guy had the audacity to tell me if I was serious about getting sober to call me back when I was sober the next morning. Hung up the phone on me. That set me off in a bad way. At least I used that as an excuse for about another 3 or 4 years until I really realized things were getting bad. And I went to a meeting at First Presbyterian Church in Alamance County in Burlington for the meeting on Tuesday evening, and lo and behold, I didn't realize it at the time, there was nobody there. They had moved the meeting. There's another little resentment for another 7 or 8 years. I haven't mentioned to you, I have a sister that's been in the program for over 20 years now. She called me on her first anniversary, her second anniversary, third, fourth. Had her husband call me on her 5th anniversary, and I politely told him that the same goes as what I told her in the first one. I didn't want to have anything to deal with you people. I was not like that. She was the one that had the problem. And when I finally got here, she told one of her friends, her sponsor just related to me, said she had to hold her breath for a long time, a lot of prayers and a lot of breath holding. I got to jump all the way up to July the 21st, 2008. My daughter had graduated from North Carolina State, and she was in medical school at George Washington University. She was finishing in the fall of 2008, and I'd been thinking since February. Financially, I was bankrupt. I didn't realize I was spiritually bankrupt, but I was. Everything was dark, and I was just thinking about my own demise. I hadn't taken a vacation for a good long while because my daughter didn't want to go on vacation with us. I hadn't shown up for graduation and all this other stuff. I just had excuses that I had to provide for the family. And my way of justifying everything was being successful in business and just buying my way out, buying presents, material things. Well, I was sitting on the beach with my wife. I said this first vacation in about 4 or 5 years that we had taken. My daughter had already refused to come, or she had other plans. I think it was a refusal to come and spend that amount of time with me for 2 weeks. I was working on my second drunk of the day, if anybody can relate to that. That night, 2:30, I'd taken a couple of big plugs off the jug of vodka in the freezer just to get back to sleep. Woke up about 5:30. At that particular time, I wasn't sleeping very much. I was just passing out, coming to, and then trying to stay up during the day. My wife took her walk, and I was trying to figure out how many drinks I could squeeze in, like she didn't know what was going on before she got back from her hour-long walk. Well, that put me in the mood to take a nap. You know, I was on vacation prior to lunch, woke up, and started that second drunk of the day. I guess it was about 2:30, 3 o'clock. We were sitting on the porch, and I remember having that big, I called them martinis, big glass of vodka with just ice cubes in it. You don't want to put any vermouth in there to bruise it or anything. And lo and behold, seriously, I had no intentions at that particular time to say what I said. I was trying to figure out the way to end my life and what would be the best way and the best time to go out after my daughter had graduated. And out of my mouth came, "I can't take it anymore, sweetheart. I'm an alcoholic. I need some help, and I don't know what to do." That was the gift that I told you that I was given. That's what happened. I believe that was a gift from God, period, because unbeknownst to me, in 2 weeks following vacation, there had been an intervention plan. No doubt. Now, I can't tell you whether that intervention would have worked or not. I was an obstinate individual at that time, but alcohol had beaten me down to that. I could see no light at the end of the tunnel. I couldn't relate all of my problems to alcohol. I just knew that, I think I took the first step at that particular time. I knew that everything was amiss. Financially, I thought I was doomed. There was no reason to live. All I didn't want to do was hurt somebody else. But it would be the best for them if I did take my own life. My wife, only because that intervention was planned, went back to her bedroom, came, and she gave me a telephone number and said, call this number now. So I called the number. It was to a treatment center in Greensboro, North Carolina. I had to wait. There weren't any beds at that particular time. So I had a good friend or an acquaintance, physician in Burlington, North Carolina. And I asked if we could come up and see him before heading back to Burlington. And he said, what for? And I said, well, I just want to talk to you. And so my wife and I came up, went to his home on the coast out there, and I told him what I was planning on doing, going to treatment, that I was an alcoholic. Here's a doctor. He said, Sam, in my personal opinion, you're not an alcoholic. You just drink like one. What's the difference? My daughter told me when she finished school that all of the courses that she took, they had 1 hour of education on addiction and alcoholism. That's amazing, isn't it? My doctor knows that I'm an alcoholic today. I think I'm learning some from her. She's telling me some of the things that happened, some of the damages that can show up years later. I didn't know the pancreas would be as bad as it can get. And the other things, my blood work is really, really great right now. The sugar level just spiked all of a sudden, and we're working on that dietarily wise. But anyway, while we were in treatment, regressing a little bit, a lot of things started to happen. My daughter came up to visit me. That had been a first in a while. I explained to her that I had a genetic, I just learned that alcoholism was a disease. I'd always thought it was something else, that I was just a bad person. Didn't think about alcoholism running on both sides of our family. Two of the family members that never were really family members that I didn't know, they showed up to certain events, and they were just, at that particular time, just pushed aside and out and told they weren't welcome. Her response was, gee, Dad, thanks. Today she is, I guess it's because of her dad. She doesn't imbibe, she doesn't drink. She might have a glass of wine or two twice a year, something like that. She is ever mindful. However, she is a proponent of Alcoholics Anonymous. To one of the greatest things, we talked a lot about anonymity. She said, Dad, I broke your anonymity, and I said, don't worry about it, honey. If it helps somebody, please do it. My anonymity today is transparent. After all, we're the last to know, for sure. Everybody, I was thinking I was trying to hide it from everybody. Even one of the amends I made to my psychologist when I got there, went up and he said, Sam, what are you doing back? And I said, I just need to apologize for a couple of things. Apologize for all the lying that I did for the 4 years that I was in therapy. And he said, you don't need to apologize. I knew you were lying. And, you know, we're the last to know. We're the last to know. Even the members of the church, that was one of the painful things too, is trying to be a Jekyll and Hyde there. That dual role is mighty hard to play. I think if you've been around here a while, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But that black hole where I was on July the 21st, seeing no light. For today, I see no darkness. That's a miracle. That is an absolute miracle. As I was finishing treatment, you know, we had talked about things. We had some laugh. I laughed for the first time that I'd laughed in years. I saw my picture as I exited or getting ready to exit, and I burned it immediately. I thought I looked pretty good, but didn't look real good, real healthy at that particular time. But they give you in treatment, they give you a contact name. And I have to tell you that rebelled against most of the suggestions. Well, I hadn't rebelled. I said I would try it for 90 days and try to do what they were telling me. I didn't believe in prayer anymore, but my counselor asked me if I'd do it twice a day. I said, yes, I will. Nothing will happen. When I saw those steps up there that first morning in treatment, saw the God thing, they just made me angry. I was ready to leave after 2 days, knew I was in the wrong place. And they stopped me immediately and took me to my counselor. And he simply told me his story. He didn't talk about me or anything else. He told me his story. And then I found out everybody in that treatment center was in recovery. The treatment center that I had gone to had been selected by my sister and by my family as a 12-step program of recovery. Although they can't affiliate, Big Book was a major part of that. But getting back after the 28 days, or 26, 27, whatever it was, they gave me a contact name. Lo and behold, that contact name was that friend that I'd had in high school, the guy that I'd last seen with his eyes blown out. And it gives me chills still to think about that. I'm a mathematician, engineer by trade now. I tried a whole lot of things before then. I tried to figure out mathematically how and what the possibilities were. I couldn't. The numbers just got too big for me. He is my sponsor today, and we have been reunited. All I can say is God works in mysterious ways. No, He doesn't. God works in our lives. We're open for reception to Him. Big Book tells me also I'm supposed to describe a little bit how I reestablished that contact with the God of my understanding. Only by doing the things that I didn't want to do, as suggested to me, praying in the morning and thanking God in the evening. I made it through another day of sobriety. All of a sudden, after a month or two, I hadn't taken a drink. I was wondering what was happening. I still wanted to drink. I was white-knuckling it, talking to my sponsor. I said, I don't understand. Tell me the truth. I want the honest truth. Does this desire ever go away, or do you just have to live with it the rest of your life? And he just said, keep coming back, just like you all said. A little bit angry, but I've got to tell you what happened. 4 months sober. It's 4:30 in the morning. I still wasn't sleeping after 4 months of going to meetings and doing what they told me to do. I was standing beside the corner of my garage. There were no floodlights on or anything else. Frustrated, nervous, wanting to take a drink, and I lifted a prayer, just like some prayers that I had been lifting before. It was kind of a challenge to God in the beginning. But then I used a word that I don't use much today, but I mentioned the word humble before you, and whatever. You can say it was an emotional moment or whatever. All of a sudden, I just had a little flush. I thought maybe it's because I used that word or whatever. But I can tell you from that moment on, I haven't had a desire to take a drink, and from that moment, I knew everything would be all right. What a change. Of course, I relayed that to my sponsor, and he said, keep praying. Questions that used to come up, because, I'd be up and down, up and down, and up and down, going along, and he started asking me, well, have you prayed about it? And I said, yes, I have. And then he said, call me tomorrow. I called him about something else. He said, have you prayed about it? And I said, yes, I have. I've spent a day praying about it. 2 days praying about it. And he said, sounds like you need to do a little more praying. Never would answer a question of mine, but just guided me through that moment. I don't believe in coincidences anymore. I can't describe why I don't. It's just too many things have happened that I've seen, that my eyes have opened to, that I can't explain. But I know I don't have to explain anymore. I just know. It's that wall of faith down deep in me. I wish there was a whole lot more. I got to tell you what it's like today. This first couple of years of sobriety were kind of tough. My daughter hadn't spoken to me, as I told you, in years. We didn't have a relationship. That relationship is repaired today. I have a grandson. That grandson bears my name. That just doesn't happen. Along the way, I was involved. My sponsor told me to get in touch with, or I needed to get to know this guy's name who's passed now. Is my grand sponsor, Bill Campion. He got me involved in the service very, very early, before the suggested times in the service manual. There are pretty good secrets in there. I don't know if you try to find them out, but there are good secrets in the service manual. I always heard if you wanted to hide something, you put it in a big book. If you really want to hide something, you put it in the service manual. All I can tell you today, and I'm not preaching because general service isn't for everybody else, but it is an integral part of my sobriety. I can't tell you, and the only word I can come up with is intrinsic. The intrinsic gifts that it gives back to me are unexplainable. Unexplainable. Just real quickly, life just kept getting, as I said, better and better. I didn't have to start worrying about things that would happen. I learned to let them go and just live in the moment. That was probably one of the greatest concepts that ever came to be with my own mind. That was a 24-hour period of the day. All I had to do was 24 hours, go without a drink. I try to live my life today on a 24-hour day. Really hard for me not to project into the future, but everything today is exactly the way it's supposed to be. That's probably one of my favorite stories in the big book on acceptance. I don't like to accept things all the time. I'm still me. I'm still life. I have found out something, though, that I can say wholeheartedly. You know, and I don't know if everybody experiences it when they first get sober, but that euphoric feeling, they call it a pink cloud or whatever. As long as I do what I did yesterday, and I fall off sometimes that plateau, I believe that we can live, as it says, 1 foot on earth and 1 foot with our Creator, and live on a pink cloud. I fall off a bunch, but I found out how to climb back on. Recently, I haven't talked much about the wife. That has been reparation for a pretty good long-standing time. She found Al-Anon about 2 years before I got sober, so you can imagine that once I found that out, it was very pretty in the house. She loved to take pictures of me when I'd fallen off the couch, knocked over a piece of furniture, with a Polaroid, okay? And said, "Have a nice day," on my mirror. They had those ways of doing things. I call it cold shoulder. It's a pretty cold place for a good long while. Today, we are still happily married. I don't know why she's still with me, except the only thing I can come up with is she grew up in an alcoholic family, and she wanted to find somebody like them to take care of them. She started wearing the pants, and it's been mighty hard trying to get them back, but I'm just letting things stay the way they are. You know? They really are. I took a trip this summer, and right before I was leaving, I drove out, and I spent 12 days driving out to Montana in my truck, sleeping in the back of it with a tent. And before I left, she said, "Sam, you know this would have been impossible if you were still drinking." And then she said, "No, it might not." Well, yes, it would have been impossible. You would probably have tried to start, but I guarantee you never would have finished. You would find yourself in a ditch, in jail, or whatever. I didn't talk too much about my past, but I did, just to let you know, 99% of the things that I swore I'd never, ever do. And a lot of the things that my sponsor knows, of course, there's no fist up here, that could have caused some some pretty bad damage in my life. We've talked about how to make restitution for some of those things, and I'm still trying to do some of those today. But after going back to this trip to Montana, to let you know how far things have progressed in the time since I've been sober, we still have our ups and downs, and she's grateful for my sobriety in words. But she said something to me out in Montana after I picked her up at the airport, and we'd driven around and gone to this ghost town and somewhere else. And we were in heavy traffic and something else. Paid me one of the highest compliments that I've ever heard from her. And she said, "It sure is nice to see you comfortable in your own skin." Now, I don't know if that's out of line saying, I know we say it here in AA. That's another thing that gives me chills, where that came from. Today, I'm just going to have to say, I'm a happy man. And I want to describe to you what it is. I got something 3 or 4 years ago, AA Thought for the Day, like I told you before. It talks about happiness, and this is exactly the way I feel and have felt in this journey so far. This happiness happens when results exceed expectations. Maybe this thing's working after all. Deep down, there's also a warm, small ball of faith, never dim, unexplainable, asking nothing but giving much. To define it or try to bounce it would destroy it or distort it. It just is. That's all. Now, truly today, understand that true happiness is found in the journey and not the destination. And in closing, I haven't been around you all long enough. I think Dan or somebody you were with, maybe somebody else, asked me I was wearing this camel on my coat. And a lot of people ask if I went to Campbell University, and I say no. No, but to those that I can't, or if I work for RJR, and I say no. But to those of you who are my family, I say it's a Dr. Bob camel. And you know that saying about the camel. A camel twice a day goes to his knees, wants to pick up his load. Second time to discharge it. He can go 24 hours a day without a drink. Thanks for letting me share it.